Hello. So we're getting ready after we created the file. Now we're getting ready to go into the app and have the app interact with the file and interact with the view, which means that we have the model, we have the view, we need the controller in the middle to make the connections and get the app to work. So we are in the solution implementation of this iteration and we are selecting a single code. So we did the group A, which is to create the file, put the codes in a file. Now group B, we need to load the code, select the code, and put the code in the label. However, as we mentioned in the solution definition, to put the code on the label, we need to connect the label to the controller. So I'm going to add step number 0 here, and we'll say connect the label to the controller. The controller is basically where we give the computing device, which in our case the phone, instructions to do something. And in order to give instructions to the computing device, we need to speak the computing device language, or we need to speak a language that can translate to the computing device. And that's where Swift that we selected for the project comes in. And that's where the file that's called the ViewController file, that's what that file is about. It allows us to put in instructions to tell the device what we want it to do. So let's start by connecting the label to that file. So if we go back to Xcode and go to the storyboard, so here is our storyboard and here is our label. And we need to connect this label with the controller in this file. To do this, we will get the help of the assistant editor. So if you go here, there are three files: version editor, assistant editor, and the standard editors. So click on the assistant editor. It will split the editing screen between the view and the controller that supports that view. So you see here, and maybe I'll make this a little bit bigger. And so now we see the controller here, and that is the controller. It says here ViewController that supports this particular view. Every view will have its own controller, and that's what the assistant editor do. This is too small, so maybe we can go to Xcode and go to Preferences and go to Font and Color and choose a different font and color scheme. So I'm going to choose Presentation here so that it becomes clear to you. So here is the controller, here is the view. So we press the Control key, drag, Control, click, and drag to the controller in the class. You say here it shows the message insert outlet or outlet connection, because this is data. If it has a possibility of actions, you will see action as well. Release, and you can see in the connection there's outlet or outlet connection. From the view controller, the type of the connection is UI label. Storage represent options in how it goes into the memory of the app or the that is controlled by the controller. We don't have to worry about this now. We just need to worry about giving it a name. I'm gonna prefix it with LBL to know that this is a label, and then I'm gonna call it code, label code. So this will be the name that I can use in the controller to refer to the label that is on the view. I want you to, I apologize that I'm giving you multiple components. There's a model, there's a view, there's a controller, but quickly you will understand that these are three categories, three groups, and we need to establish some relationships and connections between them. And as you grow more in the development, you will be able to understand deeper what these things are. So label control, and it adds this line that says that IB outlet, which means that this is an outlet connection. You see here you can hover over this and it shows you where the connection is. And forget about weak now, this is the storage thing. Var meaning that it is a variable, meaning that you can change it. You can change what goes inside it, which what we want to do. We want to change the text in that label. The name, that is the name that we gave it. And this is the type, which is UI label. And this is the exclamation mark simply says that if this is empty, we know how to deal with it. Because there is a possibility that this connection, every time you have a connection to something, and we will do that again when we try to connect to the file, there is the possibility that you come back with nothing. There will be interruption, disruption, whatever it is, but you come back with nothing. If you put nothing in your controller, it may mess up the way the instruction, because you're basically sending the computer saying nothing, and that can cause problems. So the exclamation mark assures Xcode that we know what we're doing. So here we are and established the controller. And while we are at the controller for the first time, let's take a look at, we established the outlet connection. You see in the top text that starts with double quotation and it has green, that is comment, meaning that this is not an instruction. This will be ignored when it goes to the computing device. Import user interface kit, basically that's a library framework, and you're saying that I want to use that framework. There are some frameworks that are included automatically, so you don't need to import it, and there are others that you will have to do that. Class, that's a module that you can define, and if I go to this small area, I can close so that you can see the module. So this says that this is a module in the type of class, which is the basic core module in the programming language, which basically allow you to put together instructions in a coherent module and a coherent unit. This is the name of our class, a ViewController, and this is the type. This is it inherits, not inherit, it extends or builds upon a library called UI ViewController. I know this is all new to you. Don't worry about it. Get as much as you can. As we continue through the project, you will know more. The class starts, has a beginning, and has an end. And inside this comes the instructions that in this class module. If you open this, you'll see you can put some data instructions in top here. And there are two other modules inside this class. These modules are called functions. So a class can have function modules and it can have types. We call it, it can have actions and it can have attributes. This one, it's called named ViewDidLoad, and it's an override, meaning that it actually exists in the class you built upon, the UI ViewController, but you're making changes to it. Another one is did receive memory warning. These two are events, represent events, meaning that when the view loads, when this screen loads, the operating system will notify this controller by sending a message to this ViewDidLoad module. In other words, when this screen loads, the operating system will come here to this module and execute whatever instructions you put inside. When the device sends a memory warning that there's no more memory, the operating system will come here to this module, to this controller, and execute all the instructions you have in this module. So we mentioned, if you notice, when we were planning this and we asked the question, when do we want to perform the steps, we said we want to perform it when the view loads. So we have here this module that is executed every time the view loads, which means we could add our instructions in here. Inside that view, there's one instruction that says go to the super class, the super module, which is the one we built upon, which is the library one, and do whatever the library needs to do. This is very important, so that because there's a lot of things that happen you don't have to worry about, but you need to ensure that it takes a place. So that's what this first line is, and the template already puts it first, then tells you any additional steps, put it afterwards. So that's what we want to do in that comment, and we know already what steps we want to do because we laid out our plan. So we need to, we connected the label, we need to load the quotes from the file. So we come here and change that comment, and maybe I can say this is step number 1, load the quotes from the file. This is just a comment for myself so that I can understand and know what I am doing in here. So how do we load the code from the file? I'm glad you reached the point of how. Remember with me, every time you reach the point how, you ask yourself, is there a library that can do that for me? So how can I load codes from a file? Then we rephrase the question, is there a library that can load the codes from a file for me? And in fact, there is. But there are two steps actually in loading the codes. Step number A, get access to the app folder. Say what? We are inside the app folder. Yes, we are in the development. But once the app is packaged and go to the production, which is put on the device, the app will be in the device universe or in the device memory, and we need a reference to where that folder on the device is. So we need to get access to it first, and then after that we get access, we can actually after we get access, we need to get a reference to the file itself, and then after getting the reference to the files, we can load the codes from the file. So there is actually some details that we have to do, but you don't have to worry. There is always a library for what you are trying to accomplish. So to get access to the app folder, I will tell you what the library is, and because you're still beginning, you will learn about these libraries, but either me telling you, looking it up in a book, or searching for it. But you can, and I'll show you that in a later video, you can access the documentations and reference, an API reference from the help menu, and that can give you access to those libraries. And we'll do that in a later video. So we want to get access to the app folder. So we'll say I want the library is named NSBundle, and I say I want access to the main bundle. What I'm doing here, Xcode is very powerful, so it gives you access to the library from here when you type it, to make sure that you type the correct instruction. So NSBundle is the name of the library that I want, and main bundle is a module inside that library that can perform an action. Here you can see description. Returns the object that corresponds to the directory where the current application executable is located. That's what we want. So this main bundle gives us a reference to that, and the library puts it in this type called NSBundle. So after I hit enter, I need to assign this. So I use the assignment operator and assign it in a reference in my controller. So this main bundle comes back, and I need to put it in a place in memory that I have access to. Think of this that you're calling on Amazon to do delivery, or calling on delivery, so they take it from their store and bring it to your own home. When they bring it to your own home, you need to have a table or a box or something to keep that in there. So that's the same thing. So this assignment makes the exchange between where the item was. Here in this case it was in the NSBundle or in the memory in the library, and where you want it to be in our case. So to put it in our own controller, we need to allocate a space for it in the controller. So we say let, give it any name. We're naming that space app bundle. So let the app bundle, which is the name I give. You can give it any other name you want. App bundle, and the colon here to indicate what type that bundle will be, and I'm gonna use the same type that's on the other side, because they need to match. If you're getting something that needs a hanger, you need to have a hanger for it. If you're getting something that needs a table, you need to have a table for it. So the types need to match. So I say let app bundle NSBundle equal NSBundle, and then this one piece, and I'm going to make some room here by hiding the utility area. It has three parts. The first part is what you are getting, the instruction that you are performing. The second part is the assignment, which is making the exchange between what you want it to do and where you want to keep it. And the left side is a space in the memory that's controlled by you, where you want to put the result of that instruction. The result of the instruction is a reference to the directory, and I put that reference in here. The keyword let is basically, because this is new, app bundle is the first time, so you need to use that keyword to indicate to Xcode what type of memory you want, or what type of space you want, or the nature of the space you want and the type of that space. So then the next step is to get a reference to the file. So the file exists inside the directory. So now that I got the directory, I need to get the file. So I use this app bundle and say I want to get a file. So you put the dot to access the inside modules of that bundle. And one of them is called path for resource. And you can look here, it says returns the full path name for the resource identified. So if you give a name and a type, it will find it in the directory and give you a reference to where that path is. Where is it located exactly on the device? You may say, well, I know where I put it on my computer. I tell you, yes, we know what we'll put it on the computer, but remember, this is going to run on a device, and we don't know where it's going to go on the device. So we have to ask the operating system and the library to get that for us. The power of the library is that it hides from us the mechanics of how it's going to go to the operating system and retrieve it. And we know that once we call on this library module, we're going to get it back. So we say enter, and Xcode instructs us to enter the name of the file as a string. So we use double quotation. Every time we need to add a string, we use a double quotation. So what I have here, I said the file name is nothing. So we need to give the file name. Here is our file name, the quotes list. So I say quotes list. And the type, I use another string, so another quotation. And the type is the extension of that file. So it's plist. So I say plist. So that gives me a reference to the file. I need to put it somewhere. So now this is as if you made an order. So that's your order. Now you need to assign that order locally for you. So I use the keyword let again and say I'm going to name it the file path. Use meaningful names. And this file path is a string. How did I know it's a string? Because this path for resource told me that it is a string. One more thing left. Remember that exclamation mark? We said every time there is a possibility that you're coming back with nothing, you need to use that exclamation mark to ensure that Xcode that you know what you're doing. So because Xcode is going to go search for a file, it could come back with nothing. You may have a spelling mistake in the file name. You may have a spelling mistake in the type. Maybe the file doesn't exist. So there are possibilities that it will come back with nothing. So the exclamation mark says, hey, Xcode, we know what we're doing. We know that there will be a file. We know that we are correct. If we are wrong, the app will crash. So you don't want that. So we got the file. So the last step is to load the array from the file. So how can I load the codes from a file now that I know the file? Glad you asked. We replace this with, is there a library that can load the codes from the file for me? And yes, there is. It is called NSArray. So I use the NSArray library and I say I want to create an array. So I'm not going to use the dot because I'm creating it in the beginning. And you can create an array in many possibilities, meaning that I can create a collection inside my app using, or the memory of my app using many ways. One of them, as you can see here selected, is contents of file. If you have a file and that file has a list, you can call on that library and it will automatically load the list from the file into an array. So that's the instruction. It needs the name of the file. And here, this is why I gave it a name. The file path has the path of the file and it is of type string. So this is why I made this a string. So I say, so the type match, I can say file path, and Xcode recognizes automatically that this is a suitable location or name to use. What happens here is that I'm saying I already have a file name that exists in my device memory. Go there, find it. So this is where it is. Go there, find it, and load the contents of that file into an array and give it to me. So that does everything. So now I need to assign it to myself. So I need to put it somewhere. So I say let, and then you need to name that collection. So I will call it quotes. And I'm going to make it of type NSArray as the others. And similarly, because there is a possibility that it tries to open the file and doesn't get anything, we'll add the exclamation mark. So that's loading the quotes in the file. It is a lot. It's only 3 instructions, but we introduced 3 libraries. The NSBundle, actually 2 libraries, the NSBundle and the NSArray. We introduced 2 modules of the NSBundle, main module and the path for resource module. We introduced how we can create our own memory using the let keyword, give it a name and give it a type. We learned how we can use the type to access some modules and how we can use the name of the constant or the variable we created to access the modules. We also introduced the string type, we introduced the NSArray type, and we learned how to use the NSArray creation, or we call it constructor, when you construct an array to load the content of a file and put it in a constant program. So that's step number 1, loading the codes. Step number 2 is selecting a code. So how do we make a selection out of this? That's a very good question. Whenever you ask how, you say, is there a library that can select a code for me? And actually, we already have the library, the NSArray. So is there a module inside that library that can select a code? And in fact, there is. So if you type codes, and if you want to know what modules are available in there that I can use, just hit the dot and get access to all the different modules that are available. See, there's a lot in here. There's so much that you can learn and that you can do. And what distinguishes a developer from the other is how much you're willing to invest in exploring and familiarizing yourself with all of these different modules. Some of them may be complex for you and you want to grow into them, and some of them may be known to you. And there's nothing better than experimenting and practicing, just sitting there, spending some time. Hey, let me see what I can do for this. Read the instructions, go for more instructions, and see what you can do. The one I was looking at is this one, objectAtIndex. The item is named here object. So object refers to item. It's something inside that list. So anything inside that list is called object. At index, and it requires you to give it the index. So if you want the item at index 0, then you say I want the one at 0. So for instance, if I use this and say I want 0, which one I would get? Let's go back to the file. Which item is there at 0? 0 has begin with the end of mine. So if I type 0, I'm going to get this. If I type 1, I'm going to get this. If I type 2, I'm going to get this. Because this is the order in which that array has loaded its content. Sorry, I need to go back to that's the storyboard. So I put item 0, so it's going to give me that single item. So now I need to put that here. So I put the assignment and say let, and I'm going to call it single quote. And that is a string, right? We know it is a string, single quote. And when I put this as a string, this objectAtIndex doesn't necessarily give you a string because the array doesn't know what's inside it. So I come here at the end and say, I want you to give me this as a string. So I make this match the types here. So Xcode is happy, and I ensure that everything is good for me. So this as at the end tells me that whatever this is, I know it's a string, so I want you to give it to me as a string. How do I know that it is a string? Because that's how I selected it. So if you selected it something else, you can use something else in here. There are many different types. We just introduced string for now, but as we continue, we will introduce some others. And that's step number 2, select a quote. So I selected a quote. Now step number 3, put the quote in the label. So step number 3, we want to put the quote in the label. Actually, we're not putting the quote in the label, we're putting the quote in one of the attributes of the label, and that's called text attribute. Remember when we had the utility area here? The utility area, and in the, if I select this, we had one attribute called text. That's where the quote was, inside the text. So that's the text attribute of the label. Here is my label, and it is defined with var. So there are 2 keywords that you can define, let and var. The difference between them, when you define a variable with let, you can't change it. You can't change the value of it. If you define it with var, then you can change it after you define it. So here I come to the label and say, here is the label, and access the text. So this is the text property, which is the same as the text property that I accessed from Xcode, the interface builder, the storyboard. So storyboard basically give me access to this, and then I say I want to take the single quote and I want to put the single quote here. So I say take whatever inside the single quote variable, which will have our first quote, and put it in that text. So if I run this, nothing will change because I already have the first item that I have. So let's run it and see if I'm gonna get this the same way or not. So run. So here is the first item. So let's go back and maybe change this. Let's get the second item, number 1. Which one will that be? This will be your inner strength. So let's run again. Here is your inner strength is your outer foundation. Now let's maybe do the fourth one. So all what I need to do to get the fourth one is to, and I guess I'm jumping now. I no longer need the assistant editor, so I can go back to a single editor in the storyboard and just to switch to the view controller. So I can change this one to 4. So here is the other one, and so on. Whichever one you want here, just use the item index or key and put that in the object that you want to retrieve. So everything is loaded into this array. You have a reference to the file through this name codes, and this module saves you the hassle of opening the codes and going inside and retrieving it. The beauty of the library, it hides from you all the details. So all what you need to worry about is solving your own problem, not the mechanics of how the actual algorithms work of how these things are retrieved. So if I give it 4, it gives you 4, 2, 2, 1, 1, and so on. What happens if I put 5 here or 6? I don't have 5 and I don't have 6. So if I put 5 or 6, what would happen? I will get an error and the app will crash because there's no 5 and there's no 6. Alright, so make sure you stay with that index. So that completes this last step and iteration number 3, in which we selected a single quote. If I go back to our iteration plan, that's iteration number 3. So iteration number 4 is, instead of selecting a specific code, let's see if we can select that index. Now I'm specifying the index. Let's see if we can select this at random. Thank you.